I'm going to show you the 6-step process that puts daily fantasy college football on easy mode. Whether you're just getting started with college football DFS or you're an experienced grinder, this process just works. My name's Jordan Chand, and I run SaberSim's coaching team. SaberSim gives you the tools, coaching, and community to help you win more money playing DFS. You can think of us as your personal team of expert coordinators and analysts while you're the head coach. We do the heavy lifting, analyzing thousands of game simulations and breaking down every matchup to build you a data-driven game plan. Your job is to focus on what matters, making the final winning decisions. In this video, I'll give you the step-by-step process for doing that in college football. But before we jump in, I need to get clear about something. I'm giving you a proven process, not picks that will be useless by next week. We call this process the Saber system, and it's built on the fundamental truth that when you play DFS, you aren't betting on a spreadsheet, you're betting on real, messy, unpredictable college football games. And this is the engine that fuels everything we do, and it's how we're going to make this year your best season yet. And how do I know that this process works? Because it's the process our team has personally used to make more than $20 million in DFS. That is profit, meaning cash in the bank. We've also helped thousands of everyday players win real money. In just the last year, more than 1,000 of our players have won over $1,000. 161 won over $10,000. 15 won over $100,000, and 5 players won $1 million. Jay Gerbs actually won 2 Milli Makers last year, and Giant Squid set the record with $4 million wins in a single year. Now, to be perfectly clear, I am not promising you those results. In fact, I'm telling you point blank, do not expect these results. These are outlier outcomes. My goal is to give you the process that makes those outcomes possible in your play. Your results will vary based on things you can control, like the work you put in, and things you can't control, like sheer luck. But the Saber system is an engine that follows a simple 6-step process. First, pick your battles. I'll help you find contests where you have the biggest advantage so that you're not competing against the pros when there are much easier ways to make money. The second step, simulate the scripts. We build every game on every slate from scratch, play by play, thousands of times to understand how players perform together so that you're betting on a realistic story of the game, not just a list of stats. The third step, optimize for upside. We use those simulations to build lineups that are optimized for their winning potential, not their average score, so that you have a real shot at taking down a top-heavy tournament. Fourth, evaluate the field. We then rank those lineups by their profit potential in your specific contests, accounting for how projections, upside, and ownership come together so that you know which lineups give you the best mathematical advantage before you risk a single dollar. Fifth, select your shots. We help you build a portfolio of lineups that gives you the best possible balance of upside and risk for your specific bankroll and your contests so that you can survive this variance and maximize your long-term bankroll growth. And sixth, finally, navigate the news. We watch every source and automatically rebuild our simulations when news breaks, like it does often in college football, telling you right away about important changes so you can keep your lineup safe from taking zeros and take advantage of new opportunities that others might miss. And that's the Saber system in a nutshell. But knowing the system and actually implementing it are two different things. So let me show you exactly how this works in practice. And as we jump into things here, really this video is designed for players who are new to college football DFS, new to SaberSim, or just want a solid refresher on building a repeatable plus EV DFS process as your foundation. So if that's you, you're in the right place. And lastly, I know there's a ton of excitement about the start of the season, but I just want to set reasonable expectations here. DFS, college football included, has wild swings. You might nail this process perfectly and still have a losing week. That is not a failure, that is variance. What matters is your expected value, your EV, which is what your decisions are actually worth mathematically. That's why we show you the EV of every lineup in contest flashback, so you can see if you are making good decisions even when the scoreboard or your bankroll doesn't reflect it yet. Think of it like building a house. In this video today, we're laying the foundation, a plus EV foundation that you'll build on throughout the entire season. Some weeks you'll win big, Most weeks you'll probably lose, but if you stick to this process, the math says that you will come out ahead. And I am, of course, recording this using week 0. It's just a small 3-game slate before the big week 1 action kicks off, but I wanted to get this out for you before the season really gets going, and the process I'm outlining here works whether you're dealing with 3 games or 15 games. So enough on all that. Let's get into it. I'm going to walk you through each step, showing you exactly what to look for and how to make decisions that consistently generate positive expected value. All right, step 1, pick your battles. This is the foundation of everything, because before you can build great lineups, you need to make sure you're playing them in the right spots. Here's what this step is about. You are choosing the DFS contests that give you the best mathematical advantage. Think about it this way. You're the head coach, but you also get to pick what league you play in. Even if you have aspirations of one day competing at the highest level, you should be crushing the lower stakes first to build out your bankroll. And if you're just playing to make some extra cash while watching the games on Saturday, don't make things harder on yourself by going up against the pros. Give yourself the best shot to win. So here's the specific strategy. Both DraftKings and FanDuel have rules that prevent the top players from entering contests below $3, and this creates a massive opportunity for us. I'm going into the contest lobby right now, and here's my priority order for entering contests. First, I'm going to enter every single entry contest under $3 that fits my bankroll, and these are going to be some of the softest spots available. Then I'm going to fill out the 3 max contests under $3. That's still very soft competition. Then the 20 max and 150 max contests under $3. And only after I've filled up everything under that $3 line would I even consider going above it. And if I do go above it, then I'm going to focus on the same priority order. Single entry first, then 3 max, then 20 max, then 150 max contests. So let me jump in here and show you exactly how I do this. I'm going to try to get, say, 100, 150 bucks down for this slate. So we've got the slate pulled up here, and I'm going to just find the first contest that I'm going to play here. So I'm going to actually just do a quick search for single entry, and we'll go ahead and throw a lineup into the daily dollar, and we'll just quickly fill out a dummy lineup in here. We're going to fill this out soon enough anyway, and we'll get this entered here. Now we'll bulk enter our remaining entries here, and I'm going to set this to $3 here and do another search for single entry. Nothing else there. Let's do 3 entry. Go ahead and get a couple entries in here, and then 20, and we'll go ahead and play this first down here. And then let's see if 150, we'll go ahead and do the mini max as well. We're up to about $100 here. I'm going to jump up and I'm going to get a little extra action down on this particular slate. I'm going to expand this up to, say, the $50 range, but I'm going to look for some single entry contests here first. And here you want to be mindful of the entry fees. So I'm going to go ahead and play this $5 single entry and take a quick look and see what the 3 entries look like. Not a lot of other 3 entries. There'll be a lot more contests for week 1 available here. So let's look at some other single entries here. We'll go ahead and throw one into this $12 here. And let's see if there's any 20 maxes. 20 entry max. Not a lot of other 20 maxes. Little limited here for the first week. $121 is fine with me. I'm not going overboard for week 0 here. We'll go ahead and click submit. And again, this approach maximizes my expected value because I am literally playing in contests, for the most part, where the sharpest players cannot even enter. It is the easiest path to being plus EV, which is exactly what we're looking for when building our foundation. Now that we've selected our battles wisely, we have the contests we want to attack. Next, we need to understand exactly what we're betting on when we play college football DFS. And that's not just player projections, that is the actual games themselves. So, step 2, simulate the scripts. After picking our contest, we need to understand what we're actually doing here. And this step is absolutely crucial for college football because of how chaotic and unpredictable these games can be. And here's what step 2 accomplishes. We're not just predicting that Jalen Daniels, the quarterback for Kansas, is going to score 22.45 points. We are simulating thousands of different ways that the Kansas game could realistically unfold, capturing how players perform together in different scenarios. This gives us the foundation for everything that follows. And college football, as I'm sure you know, is uniquely chaotic compared to other DFS sports. You're going to have air raid teams throwing 70 times a game, triple option teams that barely pass, and massive talent gaps where elite players can completely separate and dominate. Injuries and game flow changes can also completely flip a slate on its head at any time. As an example, look at this player outcome distribution here. We've got situations where this quarterback's scoring 10 or less points and extreme high upside outcomes where he's scoring 40 or more. This is going to be game flow dependent based on the sims. Maybe this game turns out into a shootout here, and it requires Kansas to play fast the entire game, and you're getting that upside outcome. Or maybe they lose. Maybe they get dominated and can't put any points up at all, and you're seeing some of those big floor outcomes. Our simulator captures both scenarios and everything in between. But here's the really powerful part of this data. It's these correlations you see at the bottom. When this game turns into a shootout, you're going to have multiple players from both teams most likely benefiting. And if it becomes a defensive grind, you're probably going to have a lot of players in this game all failing together. And every single player on the slate has different correlations with every other player playing in their game. These relationships are massive in college football because of the extreme variance in game scripts, play styles, and potential outcomes. Now, even more important for college specifically, news breaks suddenly and can completely change everything. You might have a starting wide receiver getting ruled out 30 minutes before kickoff when they just stumble onto the field wearing street clothes. And that outcome doesn't just affect that player's projection, it changes the entire game script. Our simulator automatically reruns when this happens, updating all of these correlations and scenarios in just a few minutes. And this simulation step is building out our foundation of realistic scenarios. So we're not guessing about correlations or trying to manually predict which players should be combined together and which ones shouldn't. These simulations reveal these patterns naturally by modeling the actual game flow thousands of times. And this step is more something to just understand of what's going on behind the scenes. But now that we have those contests selected and the game scripts have been simulated by SaberSim, next we actually take all that simulation data and build lineups that can win tournaments. That's where the optimizer is going to come in. So with our contests and the simulations run, now we can build lineups that can actually win tournaments. First, we need to upload our entries file, so SaberSim knows exactly what contests we're targeting and how many lineups we need. This is simple. All I'm going to do is click the green button in the upper left, download template file from DraftKings, and just drag and drop that file over into SaberSim. If I look over here at the contest tab, we'll see I've now nicely pulled in all of the different contests that I've entered to play here. And this step is critical because it ensures that every lineup that we're going to build here is optimized for our specific mix of contests and our entry strategy. Now, in order to get this video out in time for you, I'm recording this here on Thursday afternoon, but there is some important timing advice I have for college specifically. You're generally going to want to be building as close to lock as possible while still giving yourself time to complete your process. I would say about 30 minutes before the first games kick off is a safe target. This is going to ensure you have the most up-to-date information before lock. In step 6, we'll talk about how to react to any breaking news that happens after lock, but you want to make sure you have the up-to-date projections with all the information we have before the contest lock. Now, I mentioned our goal here is to build lineups with upside. Let's talk about what upside actually means. Upside is about lineup ceiling performance, not just individual players hitting their best case scenarios, but lineups that can deliver tournament winning scores. In DFS, we play lineups, not individual players, and that lineup upside is what unlocks those rare massive scores that'll make your entire week or maybe your entire season profitable. So our sim optimizer is the tool that takes all this simulation data from step 2 and builds lineups designed for tournament success. Instead of just combining players together with the highest average projections or highest value, it uses the actual game scripts and the simulation data to build lineups where players naturally correlate and succeed together. Now, here's the key that might sound a little counterintuitive if you are used to traditional optimizers. If you are new to SaberSim or you are working on building your foundation for college football DFS, leave all of the settings that you might see here on this first screen alone. Use the recommended defaults and resist the urge to start creating a bunch of complicated rules. The sim optimizer is doing sophisticated math based on those thousands of game simulations. Now, for DraftKings rules, we do have to make 2 small changes here to allow us to build. All I typically recommend doing is making 2 tweaks by a 100th of a point to 2 players' ownership projections, which will have almost no impact on the sim optimizer, and then click build lineups. Now, one thing I do want to clarify while SaberSim is building here, our goal with our app is to make the entire process of following the Saber system as easy as possible. So when you're actually building in the app, some of the next few steps that I'm going to talk about here actually happen automatically and very quickly as soon as you hit that build lineups button. But we want to make sure that you understand how each step works under the hood and why it matters to your success. So I'm breaking these down into different steps. Now, as the sim optimizer is working and finalizing out our lineup pool here, each lineup it's creating is based on different simulated game scripts, which means we're going to get some natural diversification, a lot of different types of lineups, while maintaining the powerful correlations and ranges of outcomes that we saw in step 2. Now, as we take a look at our results here, looking at our stack exposures or looking at some of the actual lineups that are being selected for our contests here, we're seeing that the optimizer is naturally building game stacks. Quarterbacks with their receivers, for example, because in the simulations where the quarterback has a huge game, the receivers usually do it too. But it's also going to understand different types of play styles. You're going to see that rushing quarterbacks that don't throw the ball very much at all, rack up all their points on the ground, aren't as likely to always be used with wide receivers on their same teams. You'll see that you get exposure to different game scenarios. We are getting quite a bit of exposure to some of the highest projected point teams on the slate, but we've also got some more contrarian type stacks showing up here. Again, as you get into the bigger, larger main slates that take place on Saturdays as the season goes along, you'll see quite a bit more variety here. Overall, each lineup reflects realistic ways that these college football games could unfold, with the players who actually succeed together rather than just theoretical combinations of high projections. Now, at this point, we've built our lineups based on our simulation data, but of course, not all the lineups we've built are created equal, even when they all come from the sim optimizer. The next step is to figure out which ones give us the best mathematical advantage in our specific contests. Which brings me to step 4, evaluate the field. We've built our lineups, but now we need to determine which ones have the highest expected value for the specific contest we're playing. And this step is about ranking our lineups by the true profit potential. And here's why this step matters. A lineup's value is not just about how many points it is projected to score. Contrary to what most traditional optimizers think, it is about how many points it scores relative to our opponents in our specific contest structures with the lineups that our opponents are most likely to play. This is where we can separate the lineups that actually make us money from the ones that just look good on paper. Now, I know I'm not reinventing the wheel here saying that ownership matters in DFS, but it's important to take these into account and consider how it affects your lineups as a whole. And that's exactly what this step is about. It is ranking your lineups by the best bets for your specific contest mix. And again, as I mentioned a minute ago here, most of this part of the process is actually going to happen automatically, and it'll happen as soon as you have finished building. This is the process of choosing how you are ranking your lineups that go into your contests. And for most of you that are building your DFS foundation, SaberScore is going to be your primary evaluation tool. It combines projection, upside potential, and expected ownership into a powerful ranking that accounts for college football's ownership volatility, wide ranges of outcomes, and correlations. So after your lineups have finished building, we will identify and calculate the highest SaberScore options for you, and the lineups that you're going to see entered into your contest are the highest SaberScore lineups. These are the ones that are most likely to generate profit in your specific contest environment. Those of you on SaberSim Ultimate have access to contest sims, which will take this evaluation one step further. Contest sims actually simulate your lineups competing in your exact tournaments, calculating the precise expected ROI for each lineup. But an important note here, if you are picking your battles well in step 1, focusing on the softer contests under $3, you probably do not need contest sims right now. SaberScore is going to give you an excellent evaluation for building a plus EV foundation. And either way you evaluate these lineups, using SaberScore or contest sims, you're making data-driven decisions about which lineups have the highest mathematical advantage in your specific contests. And that's what separates systematic players from those just hoping to get lucky. We're not just playing lineups that have a high projection and hoping it all works out. We're actually intentionally exploiting inefficiencies in the way that our opponents are going to play. And remember, just to be clear, this evaluation process happens automatically when you build your lineups in SaberSim. If you're on SaberSim Starter, your lineups will be sorted by SaberScore. If you're on Ultimate, your contest sim should kick off automatically after your build is complete and sort by ROI. So our lineups are now sorted and ranked. But we're not just playing one lineup, we are building a portfolio of lineups, in my case, of 176 lineups. So the next step here is to select which ones to actually play and then make any final adjustments based on our research and insights. So step 5, select your shots. The lineups are now ranked by the best ones poised for our contests here, but now we need to decide which ones to actually play and make those final strategic adjustments. And this is really where you're going to have an opportunity to fully step into your head coach role. What this step accomplishes is building a portfolio that maximizes our chances of hitting those rare tournament-winning performances while managing risk intelligently. In the volatile environment of a college football slate, you want multiple different ways to win. Now, there is another automatic step that takes place here, either after your lineups have been built on starter or after those contest sims have been run on ultimate, and that's when the portfolio diversifier runs, which you can see indicated with the portfolio plus diversity for each of my different groups here. The diversifier has identified the most balanced selection from my lineup pool. So instead of just playing the top ranked lineups based on our evaluation in the previous step, it's choosing lineups with different win conditions, different ways that the college football chaos could unfold in my favor here. And that's why we're seeing this really nice diversification looking at my exposures. We've got exposures to different types of game scripts, different ways that the slate could play out, contrarian plays from overlooked spots. We've got an appropriate amount of chalk for the teams that are projected in really good spots. Each path, each lineup that we're playing represents a different way to access the rare big scores that could potentially make this week or season profitable. So at this point, this is really where a review and revise part of a process comes in here. And if you're new to SaberSim or really still building out that foundation for the first time, I would actually recommend just playing exactly what the diversifier selects for you here. You don't need to complicate your process with any manual adjustments of this type until you're really comfortable with how everything works and have gone through the process a few times. But if you do have strong research-based insights about specific players or game environments, this is where you can express them strategically. I think the biggest, most valuable piece of data that's going to be your friend for this part of the process is the leverage column here on your player table. Leverage here on SaberSim is your exposure to a player minus their projected ownership. So I have 14% leverage here on this particular player. It means my exposure minus the projected ownership is equal to 14%. Now, I think the leverage column is really useful for studying your biggest stands. You can see sorting your highest positive leverage are going to be the players you're taking the biggest stand on, and also your biggest fades, looking at the highest negative leverage players. It's also very useful for determining how much exposure you might want to get to a particular player. Now, frankly, when I play college football DFS, I do a lot of trusting the sims and trusting the diversifier because it's not a slate that I spend a ton of time doing a ton of research on. But as an example, let's say I have done some research and it's led me to believe that Lavelle Wright is in a much better spot than either the projection or the ownership indicates here. So how do I get more of him into my lineups? Now, what I don't want to do is force him into every single lineup and smash the lock button. That would destroy my diversification and create a ton of unnecessary risk. Instead, I'll use leverage as my guide. My current top exposure player is about 15 or so percentage points over ownership. So if I want Lavelle Wright to be my highest exposed play, I can make sure he's my highest exposed player, putting him to about 15% leverage. In this exact case, he's projected for about 20% ownership here. So if I set a minimum exposure to 35 here, and then click the apply button, SaberSim will find a new diversified portfolio of lineups for me here, where I'm getting 35% exposure to Lavelle Wright. And now if I sort my leverage here, I see Lavelle Wright is my second highest exposed player on this slate. Now I could go a little bit higher if I wanted to here, but maybe I'm happy with that. I've made my stand and I've put that into the builder. Our pool of lineups based on the simulations, our evaluation of those lineups using contest sims in my case, but potentially SaberScore, and the portfolio diversification is finding the optimal way to get the exposures that I desire while maintaining all of our upside. Now, you can approach this process from a variety of different ways, whether you want to look at individual players, whether you want to look at your stacks here, in the form of team stacks, or whether you want to look at your actual individual lineup constructions in the form of stack exposure. But the main goal is aligning your risk with your confidence while working with the math and not against it. This review and revise process is how you add your insights to the solid foundation that SaberSim provides. So don't go overboard here. In general, you want to align your stands, whether they're fades or guys you're trying to get more exposure to what you are seeing coming out of the SaberSim optimizer in terms of your leverage column or your actual total lineup exposure for these different spots. Once you are satisfied with your lineups and lock is approaching, it's extremely easy to get these entered into your contests. Just click the save button. Then you'll get a positive success message here. Then download your lineups here, which will download your entries file, take you to DraftKings, where you can nice and easy just get that uploaded onto the site. So our lineups are built, evaluated, our portfolio is set, we've taken a stand here, but college football is unpredictable. And news can break right up until kickoff that changes everything. So next, we need to make sure that we stay on top of the information flow, which brings me finally to step 6, navigating the news. And this final step is about staying ahead of that information flow to protect the expected value we've created in our portfolio here. And this is especially crucial for college football. Unlike NFL, college football news reporting is pretty inconsistent. It can break very late. There can be big surprise scratches, sometimes just 15, 20 minutes before kickoff. And a starting player getting ruled out doesn't just affect that player. It's going to completely change game scripts, projections, ownership, the optimal plays for the entire slate, and so on. So to stay up to date with what's going on there, first, you want to make sure that your notifications are turned on. Now, desktop notifications are going to be on by default here, but you can always look at your notifications with this bell in the upper left and verify that they are on by clicking settings and seeing that my players out or zero projection notifications are indeed on. Now, if you want mobile notifications sent directly to your phone, we do have a setup process for that. I'm not going to walk through it all the way in this video, but in that same settings menu here in the notification center, you can click this link here and it'll take you to instructions to set that up. I'd also recommend, if you're not already, joining our Discord server, and there's a link to do so in the description of this video. There's often valuable information shared by our community in real time, including members of the SaberSim team in the college football channel, which can be more comprehensive than trying to monitor dozens of different sources yourself. We also have a college football sim alerts channel that monitors specifically when sims are running for games, so you can see if the projections are changing in real time in the Discord server. But let's demonstrate what this actually looks like in practice here. So what I'm going to do is just create a potential swap situation where surprise CJ Williams, for Stanford ends up getting ruled out at the last second. He's a value play. We've got a ton of exposure here. In this case, I would get an alert on my screen here that says that that player has been ruled out. I also have this nice little red lightning bolt here that's lit up in the upper left, indicating that I have players that are out in my lineups. So now I can make intelligent adjustments quickly. I'll click this to open up Quick Swap, and I'll get a quick summary of who's out and what's going on here. Now, what I typically recommend doing here is quick swapping all out players by the best available SaberSim projection player, preserving stacks when possible, which will make it so CJ Williams in this case is used as a Stanford stack. It will stay a Stanford stack. I also recommend turning replace another player from lineup if necessary to remove out players, just in case you've got a weird salary thing where it's hard to get him out. And then also upgrade lineup spots here if your lineup is below a certain salary threshold here. For example, it's just going to pull in the default salary for this particular slate, which it being a 3-game slate is quite low, but you'll see for typical 14, 15 game Saturday main slates, this will be closer to like 49,000 here. Now we get a summary of what's going to happen here. You see that we're pulling CJ Williams out and we're putting new stack options here into this lineup, and I can click apply and download. And in just a click, really just a couple seconds here, I've reacted to news that could potentially break the slate or completely change the slate for almost everybody. To close the loop here, I'll just go ahead and upload this new CSV to demonstrate what that process looks like. Now, the nice thing is we're not scrambling to manually rebuild everything when news like this breaks. We're making intelligent swaps that preserve the foundation we've built here. And as you're building your foundation, I think this is the right way to focus on navigating the news in college football. Navigating major situations where players are getting ruled out and you're at risk of taking a zero. I wouldn't worry so much about chasing every minor update, or you will overthink yourself into mistakes scrambling to try to do full late swaps for every single sim that runs. At this point, your primary goal is protecting the expected value you've built through the first 5 steps. Avoid those zeros from ruled out players and take advantage of those opportunities that the late news creates when others can't react as quickly or as systematically as you can. So that's it. That is the complete 6-step process to beating college football DFS. The 6 steps, the Saber system for college football DFS are: pick your battles, simulate the scripts, optimize for upside, evaluate the field, select your shots, and navigate the news. But before we go, I want to reinforce realistic expectations about what success actually looks like when you implement this into your own play. Now, remember the results I mentioned at the beginning: $1 million wins, $20 million in total profits. That kind of stuff does not happen overnight. It doesn't happen unless you're insanely lucky the first time you put a plus EV foundation in place. The players that have some of the biggest wins in our winner's circle are not seeing those most of the time. Here's the reality. Even the best DFS players in the world with the most sophisticated processes have more losing days than winning days, and that is not a failure of the system. That is the nature of tournament-style DFS. The math works out because when you do win, you win big enough to make up for all of those smaller losses if you are plus EV. And this is why expected value is everything. So if you follow this 6-step process consistently, you'll be in a position to be making plus EV decisions even on nights where the scoreboard doesn't show it. Our contest flashback tool, which we have tutorials on in our documentation, which you can find in the settings menu in the upper right, and then clicking help. That tool will show you the EV of every single lineup you play in your portfolio as a whole every single time you play DFS, so you can see whether your process is sound regardless of those short-term results. But the players who succeed long-term are the ones who trust their plus EV process through the inevitable variance. They know that if they keep making mathematically correct decisions, the big wins, the ones that I was talking about here, will come. So it is your job to build that foundation, a repeatable, systematic approach that generates that positive expected value week after week. Some weeks you'll hit big, others you're going to get dusted. But if you stick with this process, the math is working in your favor over time. So, college football season's here, fall's coming. You now have a complete system designed specifically for this sport's unique challenges and opportunities. So take this 6-step process, apply it to the week 0 slate to get some reps in, and then get ready for week 1 coming in next week. Trust the system, focus on your EV, and you can let the long-term results speak for themselves at the end of the season. And when you start seeing those breakthrough moments, when the process is coming to fruition and you're realizing some of your EV, share them with our community, post them in Discord, post them on X, and tag us at SaberSim. There is nothing I like more than watching players realize that their approach is working. So go build your plus EV foundation and dominate some college football DFS. I'll see you next time.